Good fella afternoon from here in the Solomon Islands. Okay, this is for micro teaching A. So my name is Caleb Pollard. My student ID is S1114598. My teaching major is geography, and the date today is the 14th of October 2021. So for my year 12 instructional class, today we'll be learning about climate. And throughout this week, you'll be doing some activities about the climate. So the learning outcomes from this class is that I want you to be able to analyze the driving forces of the climate. So I want you to understand how the climate works and what are those driving forces that affect the climate or why the climate is like that. But before we jump right into the main activity, I want us to share a little bit of what we have been doing during the lockdown. So I want you to open up this link. It'll open up to a Google Doc. And what I want you to do is to post a picture of what you have been doing lockdown. So this link should take you to this page here, doc. So what I want you to do is that I want you to post a picture. So first you type in your name, Mr. Pollard, and from there I want you to insert a picture. So what you can do is upload from your computer. There. As you can see, this is a picture of my parrot, which I have been looking after during lockdown. So also give a short description of what you have been doing as well to go with the picture. Hopefully this is clear, okay? So that's the first activity, to share what you have been up to during the lockdown. Okay, so climate. So climate refers to the average condition of a place or a region taken over a several decades. So for us in the Pacific, we can say that the climate here is tropical. It's either sunny or it's either wet. So therefore, we can say it's tropical. Tropical weather, you sometimes might hear this from tourists who travel. They can say, oh, this is a tropical weather. In other places of the world, especially in the Sahara Desert in Africa, some people say the climate is dry, which means there's little rain. And it's very dry, so you can see in the picture in the middle, it's dry. And the third example of climate, as you can see in the picture, is they call it ice cap, or in some terms they use polar. So this can be an example in the Arctic or the Antarctica, where it's snowy and it's very cold. So they can say the climate is ice cap. It's not like dry, it's not tropical, it's just snowy, very cold. Okay, and so that's some examples of climate. Sometimes people get confused climate with weather. So these are two different things. Weather refers to the daily atmospheric condition of a place. So sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's cloudy, sometimes it's rainy, sometimes it can be snowy. So for example, here's another activity. I would want you to post a picture of the weather outside your house. So you click on this link and it should take you to another document. So what you do with that document is that I want you to do the same thing as the icebreaker. So you type in your name. So as you see, my name is Mr. Pollard. Then I'll insert a photo of what the weather is like right now. Okay, as you can see, the weather is clear and sunny. So that's all I want you to do. So type your name, post a picture of the weather outside, and describe the weather. So that is weather. So weather refers, remember the difference. Weather refers to the daily atmospheric condition of a place, the daily, day-to-day, while climate is the average weather condition of a place over several decades, over a long time. Okay. Factors driving the climate. Okay, these are what causes climate. For this week, we'll be learning about three of the factors. The first one is solar radiation. That's to do with the sun, the heat from the sun. The second one is pressure system. This is to do with the air pressure in the air and our Earth. The third one is just climate factors, one or two climate factors we will go through today. Solar radiation. So solar radiation heats the Earth's surface, which in turn determines the temperature of the air above. And therefore, the amount of solar radiation received by any place is determined by four things. It's either the time of the day, the time of the year, the atmospheric condition, or the height above sea level. Let's look into this in more detail. So the time of the day, as you know, for me right now, the time right now is 5:37. It's about going to dusk, sunset. The sun is shining right now. But we know that there's different times of day. So you have nighttime, you have daytime, you have sunrise, you have sunset, you have midday and midnight, all these different times of day, and the temperature is different. So you could say that, what time of the day do you think is the hottest? Or what time of the day do you think is the coldest? So therefore you can see the time of the day affects the solar radiation coming in. Second one is the time of the year. So therefore in other countries, especially like Australia and New Zealand, you have seasons. So you have winter, which when it's very cold, it gets really, really cold. Then after that, you have spring. This is where temperature starts to heat up a bit. The trees come to life and all the flowers come to life. Then you have summer. That's when the temperature gets really, really hot. And everything comes to life. And then you have autumn where everything starts to die down. Leaves, trees starts to die down. The temperature drops as well as it nears winter. And you have that four season cycle. But what do you think about us here in the Pacific? Do we have these seasons or do we just have something different? Therefore, the time of the year affects the solar radiation. Atmospheric conditions. Also, these two affect solar radiation of heat coming from the sun. So in some major countries around the world with big factories, this results to air pollution. Therefore, when there's air pollution, as you can see in the picture, this leads to less sunlight or radiation coming in. Therefore, the temperature of these places are cold. And this can also be affected by the clouds as well, which covers the sun. And the last one is the height above sea level. As you know, if maybe you've experienced it as well, if you compare living next to the beach and on the mountain, what do you think is colder? So you can have a think about that as well. So these four things, the time of the day, time of the year, atmospheric condition, and the height above sea level affect solar radiation. The amount of solar radiation received by any place is determined by these four things. The second factor that affects climate is pressure system. So as we know, air is made up of all these gases, and when gases are heated up, their rise start to go up. And because these gases have air and mass and weight, when the air rises reach the top, on top, they start to spread out. And because they're spreading out, their weight or the pressure of this air is lowered, come down again. So therefore, rising air, as it rises up, it brings low air pressure. So therefore, you have this cycle. So sometimes, in these low air pressure can lead to cyclones. That's why cyclones are common here in the tropical areas. So that's another factor that affects climate. The last one is climate factors. So some examples of climate factors could be latitude. So latitude is known as the Earth's tilt. As you can see in the image, due to the Earth's tilt, countries or areas near the equator, sun's rays spread over a narrow area, while compared to countries in the poles, The rays are spread over a wide area. Therefore, due to the Earth's tilt, the sun directly heats the areas around the equator. Therefore, that's why countries here in the Pacific are very warm and tropical compared to countries near the pole. Another factor is the altitude. As you mentioned earlier, the higher you are, the colder it gets. So as you can see in the picture, the sun, there's snowing in the mountain, which means it's much colder there. So that's today. So those are the three factors about climate. So today, so also I've uploaded some videos here from YouTube, which you can also watch. This will help you give a deeper knowledge and understanding on how climate works, with more simple explanations on climate versus weather, how the climate works, and the factors that affect the climate. So please, if you have time, feel free to watch them. Okay, activities. I've also attached one activity worksheet for you guys to do. There's some questions for you to attempt. Let me just open it up for you. So student activity sheet. So these are just 7 questions. What is the difference between climate and weather? What is the climate of Solomon Islands like? Compare the climate of Solomon Islands to New Zealand. Describe solar radiation. Describe air pressure systems in your own words, and draw an air pressure system and carefully label hot air and cold air. And lastly, analyze this globe below and explain why countries in the equator are warmer than the countries in the Arctic or in the poles. Okay, just a few questions. And last but not least, homework. I want you to do some research on the climate of Solomon Islands. So I want you to write a 300-word essay describing the climate of Solomon Islands and include the impacts of climate towards the economy, environment, and social aspect of Solomon Islands, okay? So like, for example, what you can say is this. The climate of Solomon Islands is wet and dry. Now, this is what you find from your research, okay? But it could be something else. So the climate of Solomon Islands is wet and dry. Then you explain further on this, you elaborate. Then after you can move on and you say environment. So when it is wet, this results in flooding, and when it is dry, this results in droughts. Then you explain further on this, elaborate on this. Then you can say in number 2, economics. So when it floods, the floods destroys our farms and we cannot sell our goods in the market. Then you elaborate more on this. And in the social, the floods destroy our homes, so we have to relocate. Then you elaborate more on this. Okay, so that is your research for this coming week. Okay, so just for a summary, as we learned, climate faces weather. Weather is the daily atmospheric condition we face each day, the daily, and climate is the average weather patterns over a longer period of time. The factors driving climate are solar radiation, heat from the sun, air pressure systems, the air rising up, and climate factors, latitude and altitude. So you have reached the end. So when you finish your activities and your homework, please submit them into my email. So that in my email is s111-45908@student.usp.acfj. Or if you have any questions or any queries, or if you're stuck about something, please do not hesitate to ask me. It's my email and that's my contact number as well. So please enjoy the work and see you next week for another class.